Yes. Oh, super loud, right?
Super clear.
Yes. Okay.
Even the people in the back.
Yes. Cool. So welcome to the next week of Feel So Professional now. Welcome to the second week of Node.js, where we'll go deep into routing and what routing is in Node.js. So I guess last week we learned about the basics of Node.js and what module is. But then I guess, let's start with the agenda for what to expect from today. So we have we'll just do quick revision about what we learned about last week, what routing is, what middleware is, and what Postman is, and then we'll have a lot of exercises, I guess less talking and more exercises. I wrote in the channel yesterday to solve Postman and make sure it works. So do I have everyone with Postman? No, I think you need to have the app. Yes, yeah. Yeah, you can, yeah, yes, okay. But the most important is to have the app itself, yeah. But you don't have to do container. Okay, but then we'll go through it today. Yeah, cool. So I guess we'll have revision about the last week. So I think we talked about these things as a headline. First thing we talked about JavaScript modules, right? Can someone explain to me what JavaScript modules is? It's why would they use JavaScript modules? Because you remember we talked about instead of writing everything in one file, we can have subfiles and then share them together. So why should I do this? Yes. Yes, but why do I need to export and import them? Yes, reusing them, yes. And then also separating the responsibility. So instead of having everything, and if you have something wrong, you don't know where it is in 1,000 lines of code in one file, then you have smaller files with single responsibility. Okay, and what Node.js is? I guess that's what we have the 3 weeks about. Yes, we have also the V8, but what Node.js in general is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So instead of the browser. Yes. And what is the V8 engine? Yeah, it's an engine, yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like the engine that runs behind Node.js. And also we talked about server and client request and response. So what is the difference between request and response? Yeah. So who sends the request? Is it the server or the client? Client sends the request, and the server receives it. What the servers will give me back? Response. Yeah. Okay. We also talked about HTTP verbs, right? Do you remember? Yeah. Patch, delete. Yeah. Yes. But so when to use put? Yeah, is it for update or for create or forget or for update? What about post? Create. Yeah. What about delete? Yeah. Yeah. What about patch? Yeah. Can I use get or post to do everything? Yeah, you can, but should I do that? No. Yes. Why I should not do that? Yes, but you can also do delete or update using only one of them. But as we explained, it's a contract between the server and the client, and you should just respect what people uses or what is the convention. Because you can still use post to delete data, because you control from the server side what will you do when you do deletion. But the thing is, it's not convention, it's not what people in the internet do. It's not what people used to. So you can do it yourself, but then it will be hard for other people to come and to maintain your code. Then what about HTTP status code? Yes. Yeah. 404, yeah, and 500, and yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes, because nobody is expected to remember all of them. Yes. And express is the, I guess, node module. Yes, that will make it easier to write the server. Yep, that's good. Okay, so then we'll start with the exercise. As I said, like today we'll have more work than talking, so that's a good part. So I guess just to remind you of what we did last week, I want to start with the first exercise. You create a new folder for this week. You can call it like whatever, like week 2 or something. Then they create a server. It should listen on port 3000. When the server starts, it should print, I'm listening on port 3000. And then it should return, like when you call /about, it should return your name in an H1 tag. And then just stuff to remember from the last time, to create a new Node.js application or module, you call npm init inside the new folder, npm install express to install express, app express to create express, and then app.get is to listen on a specific route, and add.listen is to listen on port. So yeah, let's go. All right. So let's start the second module for routing. I think you are all done, right? Yes. Cool. So routing, I think some of you got confused or like, okay, about routing, and I think, which is like, for example, when you call / about, you go to somewhere, right? And you can have multiple routers. And then we'll just go deep into this and focus on multiple bars that can be confusing for everyone. So first part is the routing path. So the path is the combination of the request method, blah, blah, blah. And so basically the path is the, when you go / about or / users and so on, that's the path, because you can go, if you go to Google or Facebook, it's like google.com/search, and then you can provide multiple things. And that is the search params. I will just explain the concept and then we'll just do it, I guess, as in something in the code you can see. There's also a routing order. So when you register the routes in your application, the one you register first, it will be used first. So if you have /about 2 times, the first one is the one that will be returned, and the second one will be ignored. And if you have something that's like about /1 and about, if you call about, it will go call the generic one, while about /1, it will call it only when you specify this path. This can be confusing. I know there's like won't explain the concepts, but I don't know. Routing as a module as well. I feel all of these will be easier just explained by examples. So let's do that. Okay. So I'm here and the Hack Future node. So I want to create a new folder. What should I do? Can you help me? Just mkdir. Do you know what mkdir makes sense for? Make directory. Yeah. So then let's call it routing. And no. ls will show me. You know what ls stands for? List there. Yes. So I want to go to this one. How can I go there? Change directory, routing, and node ls. So now I want to create a new NodeJS application here. How can I do that? No, I want to create the module itself. Yeah, someone npm init. So then you remember, like, you have to go specify all these arguments, right? There is a trick you can do -y, which means like yes for everything. I don't want to choose. And then it's like, okay, it created everything with the default. So it's here. And so the default thing, so I didn't have to specify it. Though I still can change this one to server.js. Nobody will say anything to me. I can always go to the JSON and change whatever I want. So let's move this one here. Yes. And let's just close everything and focus on this one. So now I want to install Express. What should I do to use Express? Can I abbreviate Express with install with something that's shorter? Yes. Okay. By the way, is the terminal big enough for you? Can you see? Yeah. So okay, so I can see here that I have Express, and I've also here specified that my main file is server.js. So let's create server.js. Yes. So if I want to create my server, so how can I import Express? Once Express, then yes. Then I want to create an application. Equal. Yes. And then I want to have a port number. Const port. Well, I'm sick of 3,000. I want to start a new number. Can someone suggest another? Yeah. 5,000. Okay. Yes. Because like if it's and then I want to start the server on this port. How can I do that? Yes. Listen, and then port, and then I want to get a message when the server starts. What should I do? Anonymous function, and then console.log listening on port. Yes, and then the port. Okay. let's start this application. What? It broke. Okay, so it says that 5,000 is in use for something. Actually, don't know. Let's use another number. 5,001. Smart. Okay, 1,000. Okay. Yeah, start. It works. Yes. So it says here that it cannot get. We explained a bit last time what cannot get means, right? So it means my server doesn't know what to do when I call it in the main directory, right? Yeah, I added get or added post and so on. So yes, and so how can we fix this? I want when I call the main directory here, it returns something. How can we fix this? Yes, app.get, then slash, then what? Request and response. Can I name this something else? Can I name it Ahmed and Fu? Does it matter? No. And then I want to return something. First dot. Hi. Yeah, but it's up to me, right? It depends if I want to return tag or not. Yes, that if you want to return multiple things. Oh, sure. Is this good enough? Yeah, okay. Yes, but that's yes. So there are two things. Like there's the function, let's call it the handler, okay? It can be request response, and then it returns something. This is equally at handler, I think it's called long hand function request response. Then this is the same, it's just like two styles of writing it. I honestly, it's preference. And I think this is more new or modern. And I personally like it because I don't have to write function every time. It just like saves time. Can you repeat? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because like JavaScript, as I also always say, it's like your good friend. It will never say no. You can provide whatever and it will just work. Because there are also so many ways of doing the same thing and they all work. So it always depends on what your personal preference, what you like, and also what you, if you're working with a team, what you agree to use. Because it doesn't make sense for me to use one function this way and use one function this way. If we are working as a team, we need to agree in one way and do it everywhere. I think that's what is more important. Okay. But then both these are the same. So then if I type hi here, that works. So if I press here, then it returns hi. But then if I change this to be h1, and save, then I will just get it bigger. But it will also work without providing the HTML tag. But you can customize it however you like, right? Because I imagine, for example, if you have a blog post and then you are returning a blog, the blog, for example, you have sections, you have headers, you have more content and so on. So we're just starting with the example, but you can use your imagination to make it more complex. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because it's basically it's an HTML page, so you have document models you can modify, and you return things dynamically based on what the user asked. So so now if I provide this one, then let's try to find something else. app.get / the one we talked about. Let's actually talk about log. So then I don't want here to return HTML. I decided to return JSON. You know what JSON is, right? So JSON is like JavaScript objects. You have an array. You can have multiple objects, dynamic, and so on. So let's imagine we are building a blog post. Okay. So if I call blog, I expect to get list of blog posts. Okay. So let's just create a random list here. Call it blocks equal to this object, and then we have ID, one, name, or name, foo, and then content. Yeah, foo bar. It's different this time. And then, how can I return JSON? End, and then. Yeah. Yeah, we are trying together, right? We're learning, so it's fine to. Yes. So I guess Nikita, you're saying end, and then just how can I pass this list? Or array. But if I want to send it at once, altogether. So here inside. Okay, let's try. So now, as you see, the main website didn't change, right? The main page is still the same, because I told my application, if I go to the main page, do return hi. I created a new endpoint, but this is separate or isolated, so it doesn't change the main application, right? So now if I return blog, how can I access this page? /blog. Yes. So if I go here, /blog, I got an error. What is that? It's because we were not supposed to send end, because end is after doing multiple things. But yeah, so yes. So someone here is saying we can use JSON, which is similar to send. It's equal to send, but we are just telling the browser that the type of the thing we're sending back to you is JSON. So if we try this one, then I'm getting JSON. And then if you have a plugin in your browser to parse JSON, it will just be colorful and nice and so on. But I don't have it, so yeah, later. But then also, what's the difference between this and this? Because this should return something. Yes, because you remember the headers we talked about last time. You identify what you are giving the browser back. So when you just send, you tell the browser that you're sending back text. But while what we're sending here is JSON. So we just tell the browser that this is more accurate. And as I said, you can also send it as text and then rely on your code in the client to do it. But is this the right thing? No. So we learned about JSON. So JSON is to, and we can actually see the description here when we hover over it. Sends the JSON as a response. Okay. So that works. So let's talk about the other thing. So if I want to make things a little bit interesting, so if I register blog multiple times, so I supposedly will have one handle to handle one thing, right? One handler. So I call this handler because it handles a specific route. So if I return another one and I just send here hello, because I use hi here, so I just being creative and then return hello. So I have two routes are returning different things, right? How this will work? The second, the first? Let's see. Yeah. So who think the first will work? Right, raise your hand. Yes, we have to. Who think the second will work? Raise your hand. Okay, we have more, way more. Okay, so let's see. How can we know which one will work? Yes, we need to try. Yes, so 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, yes, it's the first one. Yes. Hello is the first one. This is the second one. Oh, okay. Oh, only when it's wrong, right? No. Hmm? Yes, exactly, because the routing handler in Express or in Node.js, it handles things in order. So what you register first will work first. So if I want this to work, so now if I change the order, so now you cannot get wrong. Is the second, which second you mean here? Is the second, yeah, yes. Okay, yes. So the first should work in this case. So let's try, save, and refresh, and that works. So usually you should only register one, but if you by mistake register two, and that could happen because you didn't know, or one of your colleagues is working on something else and you're doing the same thing, then you know, Node.js register things in order. So if you have two with the same handle or the same this route, then the first one will be match it will use it, and then it will return. Yes. Well, JavaScript is not fair, so yes, but is this clear so far? So we are talking here, when I say route, this is the address like /plug or /something, and then it's the first one. Can you repeat? Yes. The first of all of them, or what first one? From all of them, or? Okay, yes. So I guess then we will need to do something in JavaScript to do that. Map, or yeah. So map selects one thing. So if we say here, so let's say blog IDs. So this means we want the ID. So then we call plugs.map. Map, it will go through each of the items of this array, and then will let me do something with it. So I would do here is item.id. So this means go through each of the item. I only return the ID of this item. So if I save this one and I return it here, and I save all this, and I try to refresh the page, then I get one. And this is also, if you see, this is the short function. This is the arrow anonymous function. Can I do it in another way? You remember, like, you can use also function word and provide things, right? So you can also do this, the same thing, but this way. Function, item, and then return item.id. Let's save this one, actually make sure it works the same. So this and this are doing the same thing. It's just the first one, as you see, it's way shorter. And that's why I like it, because I write this code. But did this answer your question? Yeah. Cool. So then let's learn a new concept. So I will just delete this one because we don't want it to make it confusing anymore. So right now, let's imagine that we want to get blog post by ID. We have multiple blog posts. It's Nodeman. Yeah. I think we also talked about it last time. Yeah. No, it's fine. Yes. It's just because also while I was checking, some people forgot about it from last time. So it's good also a reminder. Because Nodeman, I don't have, yes, because also when you make changes, you need to restart the server. And Nodeman will just listen on my changes, and as soon as I save the file, it will restart. It just might make my life easier while I'm developing code. Okay. Then let's talk about the next concept. Yes. If I want to get blog post by ID. So now if I have multiple blog posts, and when I call blog, then I get the list of blog posts, right? let's imagine you are going to a normal blog post. The main page will have the title and a small summary, and when you click read more, you will go into more details, right? So right now we want to do the same. So we will just, when you call blog, we will return the ID and the title. And then when you call blog slash the blog ID, we will give you the whole content of this blog post. Okay, so I think first thing we need to do here, we want the main page to return only the ID and the name. So how can we do that? Blog titles, blog, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, blog info. That's a good name. And then let's check the box, map, and then item, and then ID. Oh, sorry, item ID, and it's better to be called title, right? Yeah. Title and item.title. So then I have a blog info here. Okay, it crashed. What is wrong? Yes, okay, let's use the ID for now, and then we can fix it later. Oh, it's small. Sorry? From here or? This one? Yeah, okay. And the same here? Okay, let's try. So this way. Let's see if this would work. Okay. But I want to return multiple items. This way. Then yes, I think this will work with the long-term version of this, or the longhand. So let's see, it's function item, and then return object item.id item.title. Still doesn't work. Okay, let's check item. Yes, that's weird. Okay, let's start with the IDs for now, and then we can go and fix it later. But we want to return, because map will do a for loop, so we will get each object, and then we choose what items we want to return out of this object. Yeah. So how do you think we should do it? So we add an array here, and then item content title. Oh, sorry. And then let's restart and see. Okay, that works. But what about this? It's actually weird. Keys, and then title. Da. Yes, yes, that's true. But actually, then I want to try the short version. Item. No, okay. Well, if it worked, I don't want to touch it. It's fine. Yes, but that's the first thing. So now we want to handle the case if the so now I have the list of the blog post IDs and the title. But what if I want to read more about the first title? So then I would go usually to blog-1 or /1, right? Then this should return something to me. So now we will learn about yes, this is one word. Yes, yes. A lot of buzzwords, right? So then we will learn the first concept we talked about here, which is the query, or like the rest. No, I think let's do the rest a bit later. But let's call about this params. So how would I handle this? Because by the things we learned so far, so when I call /blog, I will return the list of the blogs. But how can I know which number the user will pass? Because if I want to handle it as from what I learned so far, this will be like /1, and then let's call it find, where item.id equal 1. And that works, right? But imagine if I have 1,000 blog posts, do I need to create one for each of these? No, if I have 1,000, yes. Yes, we use params. So the params is basically replacing this one because I don't know what the user will pass with :id. So this is a value I will get in the future from the user. And then how can I read it? So if we go here, what is the easiest way? Like, I don't know if we talked about this before. How can I debug something if I don't know what to expect? Console.log, yes, is my good friend. So console.log is, I expect this to be somewhere in the request, right? So let's say I don't know where this will be included, but I will expect something to be called ID in the request, right? So let's save this one. And then let's go here and refresh. It still works because I have this. Actually, let's just copy this and then return empty for now, and then refresh. Okay. So then I see a lot of things being logged here, right? That's the request, because the request has a lot of information that is, yeah, so much information. So query. Yes, let's find params. Yes. So request the query, the params has a field called ID and value of 1. Actually, I think the request here is a bit confusing. So let's try to request dot params and restart and call it refresh. So can you see here? It's 1. But is this name ID is it a contract? Is it something? So I can call it whatever. So I can call it Ahmed, my name, and then restart. And then if I refresh here, then Ahmed is 1. It's like it's not really, it's anything you decide or how you want to do it. But here is the ID. So how can I access it here from this request? Yes. So .id. So if I refresh here, then I see here the ID is 1. And then I will need to filter my blog post to find this blog post and return it. How can I do that? Const log equal to blogs.what filter. If I only want to return one item. Yes. So what's the difference between filter and find? Yeah. If there are multiple. Yeah. Yes. So find item, if item dot and then I return it to the user. Refresh. Okay, I got nothing. That is weird. Do you know why? Hmm? The buff, but we have the buff here, right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just let's try to figure this out. Yeah. Do you know why? But we printed the ID here, and the ID has the value of 1, right? But what? Hmm? Yes. So the ID here is of type string, and the ID in the list here of type number. Yeah, and so we need to switch or convert this from string to number. You know how to do this in JavaScript? Hmm? Parse and let's try each of the ones you talked about. So what is the first one? Parse, and this one should return something. What's the other one? Someone mentioned something else. Plus, okay. This way. You said plus, not parse, right? Plus, okay. So 2 minuses? No. Yes. You can get creative. Yes. Then refresh. Then we have multiple ones, but here they are as numbers. So yes, I think you can do a lot of things, but the most two common things in JavaScript is parse n or plus. Plus is a shorthand for parse n. So plus is just to convert to number from string. Yeah. Okay, but if we copy parse n to here, then should it work? Will it work? Yes, no. Now we copied parse n. So let's put it here as well. Number this way. Uppercase this way. Okay. So this also worked, yes. But parse float, if I want have a decimal number with dots. So parse float will parse something like 1.56, something like that. But integer is just number, 1 or 2 or 3. So yes, so we learned, like, I didn't show you anything, but you have defined 4 ways of converting string to integer. So parse n plus multiply number, and all of them work the same way, I think. It's not a big deal. But with fixing this, we are now getting the results, right? So that worked. So I will comment this out. I actually also don't like this way of defining things. I don't like to call multiple functions in the same line, but it's just me. I like it to be more organized. So let's call it plug ID equal to, and then I can call this way. Then it's easier steps, so it's easier to understand and easier to see what is going on. And this still works. Okay, so we learned a new concept today, which is the query params, or sorry, the params. So that's like you start with colon, and then you name something, and then you can access it here this way. What is the fourth concept? The query params. Yes. So now So yeah. Then you can add anything. So, okay, how far are you with the homework? Sorry, not the homework, but the exercise 2. Last 2. I actually don't have it because I made this myself, but we can do it together if, yeah. So what do we need to do here? So you can create a router to handle users. Let me bring a chair and then sit. So we want to create a router for users. So how can we do that? So go here, users.js, or user singular plural, I don't care. So then we get express, require express, and then user router equal to express.router, and then user router dot what is the endpoint? Users. So should I do it slash or slash users? No, slash, because users, this is a child of users. And then request, response, and something. We return all users from the first one. So this is rest dot. Let's assume we have users. Yes, it's just an empty array for now, but JSON users, right? And then the second thing is you can query. So you can query by typing, query by what? Country. Okay, so country query equal to request dot. Is it query or the params? No, if I want to query. Yes. Dot country, because that's what we want to query with. And then we go to users dot map, or no, not map, filter. Or actually, we did the same mistake. So if country dot query, then result. Dot filter, user where user dot country equal to the country query. Yes. Otherwise, you do so we can just map to the name, for example, or anything. Then you return this one. Actually, you can share it in the group if that would make it easier for you.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Then the params. Let's go to the second example, and then I will explain what is the difference. So then the last one we want to call, when you call users ID, you should return the user with a specific ID. So now we need to create a new route, user router.get stash ID or user ID, and then request response, and then yes, user ID equal to request.params.user ID, and then user equal to users.find user, where the user.id equal to user ID. But if you remember, this will not work. Yes, if you remember, this will not work, right? Yes, so we need to add plus or parse int or oops, and then press dot what JSON user. You get it? So you get the difference between the two?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because this is params and this is query. And let me try to refresh the example. I pasted here. And of course, yeah, I forgot also to. Then the most important thing is module.exports equal to user router. And then what router? Here? Yeah, you can call it router. You can call it whatever. But you just need to be consistent with the name. And then you import it the same way, user, and then user router, and then you register it here the same way, user router. And let me also do it, paste this one here. And this one. Any questions about this part? Yeah. Okay, cool. So does make sense? Cool. Let's then move on to middleware. So a middleware is a function that can be between multiple requests. Let's read the descriptions. Like middleware function are functions that have access to the request, response object, and the next function. The next function is a function that express route, which is invoked in the middleware, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is too generic. I think I can explain it better by giving you a problem, showing you a problem, and then showing you how to solve it with the middleware. So let's start another server. So cd, and then make directory, NodeJS middleware. So server.js, and then express. And then add that lesson on some ports. Then with some message, console.log. Then let's see the port equal to 3000. Then lesson on port here, and that should be fine. So let's see that we have multiple things. So if you call slash, then we return function for break response equal to just message hi. This is quite simple, right? So if I start node server.js, then the server should return hi, right? So what if I want to have another endpoint called admin and call it super secret page? So now anyone can access admin, right? But what if I want to limit this to a specific user or specific set of users? Well, I can basically check if request dot. Let's assume that, okay, actually, maybe it's a good time to introduce Postman or talk about Postman. So let's start Postman. Yes. So Postman, you can open it like when you start opening it, it's a tool that allows you to create web requests to the web. So why would you use it over the browser? It just calls everything. So the good thing about Postman is it will allow you. So as you mentioned, when you click enter in the browser, which verb do you use? Get, post, delete, or something. Which verb would you use? It's get, right? But what if you post data or save data? What if you want to add extra things like headers or add parameters or things? It can be a bit challenging in the browser. So Postman is an easier way to do that. So Postman, I will just show you how to do it. So like, if you look here, you have a plus sign where you can create a request, right? Right here, if you click on this drop down, you can have all the verbs from HTTP. What we learned about last time are the most common ones, like get, post, patch, but there are also plenty of things. It's fine. Here, the request. Let me try to zoom in. Is big enough? Okay, cool. So we have get, post, patch, delete, and so on. But the interesting part here is you see these sections. So you have params, which are the params we talked about earlier. We had to specify, for example, here when we went to blog, what was it, 9,000? We had to type it ourselves, right? But if we go here and let's call it 3,000, you can specify the params here, name, who, and then Postman will generate it for you. That is more convenient. You can also specify auth, which is something you will learn in the future, authentication. So how can you prove to the server that you are who you are? You can also provide headers, which, as we mentioned, is something you include in the request, but only the server can see. The body will be set when you, for example, send a post request, because if you want to create a user, you want to provide the username, the user, for example, date of birth or the country and so on. And this information, you cannot paste it as part of the URL. So you need to provide it somehow. And this way is through this URL encoded. So you can provide like name and other things, which we will learn about next week. But what is interesting for us this time is to, for example, here is the base URL is our URL that we want to call. But if we go here and let's see, what do we have? Okay, this works as expected. So let's add console.log request.headers. And So this is, so right here, if we call this one with, if we refresh, there are a lot of headers here like host, connection. Those comes from the browser by default, okay? But there is no easy way from the browser to add extra header if we want to add extra header, right? But from Postman, I can go to headers. There are multiple headers that come out by default. But I can see, for example, user ID, and then 1. So when I send here, it says error. Just because we want to call admin.
You have to connect this Postman with what you're doing.
No, it
Just by putting the URL there.
yes. Let's see again. Let's try again. Yeah, of course, because it's get not post, right? So if we press enter, then we got super secret page here. Here is the response we get. And if you see here what we print, we get the user ID as header. So we were able to add extra things to the request. So in the future, when you work on front end, in the front end, you'll also have access to add extra things to the request, which is you cannot do from the browser. Because you can add extra things to the request from your JavaScript code. But right now, we want to pretend that we are front end and we are calling our application. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Let's say we want to protect this page from any user, like the user ID one is the admin, and any other user is not allowed to access this page. So let's say we want to do it this way. So we checked that request of headers is printed here. So request.headers is JavaScript object, right? And we checked that we have an ID called user ID, right? So we want to check if the user ID one is set. So let's say if, let's assign a variable here, user ID equal to request.headers.user-ID. Or I think this will not work in JavaScript, right? With the dashes. We have multiple ways to access objects, right? What is the other way? Square, yeah, double or single quote or double quote user ID. Well, let's verify first that we have it set. So console.log, send the request again. And then we have 1. So that worked. And remember, is this an integer or string? No, it is string. So then we need to parse it to int. So let's just add plus. So if user ID equal to 1, or actually let's reverse it. So if the user ID is not 1, then return JSON unauthorized, if I can type it correctly. So if I go here and I type, I get it, right? But the browser doesn't specify the ID. Then we get unauthorized. Yes. And the header section, you can specify user ID and then 1. So the second thing is so yes, here is unauthorized, and also here is unauthorized. But as you see here, sorry, if I change this to 2 or 12, then I get unauthorized. But the server is returning to me back 200. Is this the right HTTP code? What should I expect from this one? Yeah, I actually don't. If we don't remember, we can also go and check. It's called Mozilla HTTP status codes, and then Is it client or server error? It's yes. We have an HTTP status code here, unauthorized. So what should we return to the user if he's not allowed to access this page? 401. So if I go here, by default, if you don't specify anything, it will be 200. But you can also say dot status and then add a status number. What is the number here? Let me zoom in. So the unauthorized is 401. So when I type 401 and I save, also here in the browser, I think it's very hard also to see what the status code you get, right? You're only getting the message in the browser. But in Postman, when you type send, so now we are seeing here that the returned HTTP status code is unauthorized. And the message we specify, we can change. You can see it's like, okay, you are not allowed to access this page.
But I don't understand the unauthorized part because I mean the user is getting the "you're not allowed" message anyway.
Yes.
So.
But this is a message as a feedback you get to the user. So for example, you can print this in the UI. But again, the contract between the server and the client should be with the standard HTTP practices. So you should always follow the verb and the code. Because as I mentioned, it can also work if you return to, you can also actually also specify here 200. And it will work. But is this what is expected? And you can actually see in the internet, if you try to make a random API and call it, it will respect this. So you should be able to respect and return the normal HTTP status code. Because you can also not return anything and just return status code. It's like 401. So or not actually. But send. And then yeah, nothing. But then you got unauthorized. But if you want to be nice, then you can extra message, so then you can provide more context to your user. Provide more information, because unauthorized itself doesn't tell me, like, don't I have access, or I don't have permission, or what is wrong exactly. Yes. Exactly, because then you can have multiple cases, and then you return a specific message for each of them. Then you become nicer to your user. Because if you just print to the user 401 what the user can do, you don't really know. Yeah. If you don't specify it, it's by default 200. The default for it is 200. Okay. So what do you mean? It's good practice to specify the status here, because then you are becoming more strict, or you specify what the user should expect from you. Because someone was saying something? No? Yes. Yeah, because for example, let's say that we have an endpoint called user ID. And then let's say that we try user ID. Dot params dot ID. And then it's, so let's say that we know that user one doesn't exist. The programming languages is mixing in my brain because, yeah. So now we can return response dot status, 404, then JSON message user not found. So then if you go here and in Postman, if you see, if you press plus, then you can have multiple things and switch back and forth between them. So let me copy this one here, and then user, and then one. So if you press here, then you get user not found and 404. If you provide user 0, then we return high. And this is okay. You can also not return 404 and then just return user not found. But then it's how you say okay and how you say at the same time it's not found. You're contradicting yourself. Because it's always good to be consistent. Let's move this one to next. So right now, as you see, we have here check if the user is authorized. And then if the user is not one, we return message are not allowed. But then let's say we have more endpoints. So let's say, for example, admin, and then blog manager, a place to manage blogs, and then admin password control, and then to specify them this way, and then we can also have it this way. All right. So then let's try to call them. So now we have admin that we can call. You're not allowed, but it will work if you are one, right? And then what about admin? What was the handler? Blog manager. This is a subpart. And then we return, it's a super secret page that only user one is supposed to have. And then password control is also super secret page, right? I think the 3 is super obvious. Is only user one is supposed to access. But do you see one problem with the code we have? This part of the code is repeated 3 times, right? This part to specify whether the user is allowed to see this page or not is repeated 3 times. There are multiple ways we can improve this. Can someone suggest me one way to improve it? Make a function. Yeah, let's try to do that. So let's call it like function is user authorized. And then let's try to pass the request and the response and copy this part. And actually, I don't know if that would work. Let's see. Or will it work? I don't know. Or okay, let's make it generic enough. So if the user is authorized, then we return true. False is not authorized if it's not one, and then return true if the user is authorized. Does this make sense here? So we are getting the request, we are getting the user ID. If the user ID is not one, we return false, which means the user is not authorized. If the user ID is one, we return true, which means the user is authorized, right? And then we can use it here. Authorized const, and then if authorized, return this. Now we have reduced the duplication because we can use this in all the places. We have less logic, of course. That is better, right? We have managed to save some part of the code. Can we improve it more? here. Yeah, but it's just, it doesn't do anything with the request. It just reads a value. We use something in routing, yes. Which line? Oh, yes. I think JavaScript will not say anything with that, but it's a good observation. Yes. Yeah, that's a good one. So, and also one of the problems with the approach I'm using right now is that the function or this handler is polluted. It has a lot of things like, is it authorized? But is authorized, is it part of the blog manager? Is it part of the logic about managing a blog? It's an extra thing, right? So as you see, there is a problem here that we should solve, or we should find a way to solve it. So now the middleware come into place, which I'm trying to introduce here. So if we try to use app.use, then this has request, response, and next. And then if we go here, we extract this one, we move it to here. So right now we have access to the request and the response. We have a new function here called next. So here, yes. So the middleware is basically as, I don't know if I can draw something here. Request, then middleware, then routes. So in the server, before going to the route, any routes, we will hit this middleware. So this one, it can, I don't know if I can do this as well. So this middleware can be used in multiple routes, the same middleware. So in this case, if I specify here before the admin that if the user, no, it's actually, this is wrong. If it's not authorized, we should return you're not allowed. So this means before calling this endpoint or this handle, if you're not authorized, just block the request and return right away before going into the logic of the code. If everything is fine, then next. So next means go to the next part of the code, which is this one. Now we clean up this one. Now we clean up this one as well. Now we clean up this one. No, not this one, of course. Yes, we need it. Yes. So now if we refresh and go back, this still works, but does it still work with 2? You're not allowed to access. So as you see, this middleware is called before admin. But does it work with slash? So if we remove this thing here, then press enter, it doesn't work with it. Do you know why? Because we talked earlier about the order. So we register this middleware after we declared slash. So this means it only applies to the things after this time. So if I want the slash to be included, then I can move it to here. So this means anything after this middleware, it will need to respect this middleware. So if I save this one and I click here, I get message that you are not allowed. But in general, like the main page, I don't really care because it doesn't have any secret information, so anyone can access it. I don't have a problem. So hi. And then the middleware here. So as you see, the benefit of using this middleware is that my code for managing the admin, the blog manager, and the password control is cleaner now, because I have one place to manage the authorization and authentication and everything. And then I can focus in the handler here about the specific parts I want to use. Does it make sense? Yes, sure. Fine. Fine. Someone is multitasking here. Yeah, with a boy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This function, because I'm using it here in the middleware, but it's only now used in one place. Instead of using it in each of the handlers, I use it only in one place in the middleware. Is it clear? I can give also another example if it's not clear. If I'm not hearing anything, it means that it's time for the third exercise. Because this is actually an example for the middleware. Because now I want you to create a router called special, very special router. Only premium users are allowed to access it. And the user send a header called user ID. I think it's exactly the same as the one I did here, which is, I don't know why I did that, but, and then if the user ID is not one, then you return an error. So the status codes, I think it depends on the situation, but I would think about, for example, when you create a resource, you return 201, which means created, 404 if you don't find it, 400. Actually, it really depends on the situation and how much do you want to be specific with the user. Because sometimes it's good to be specific because then you get a better user feedback. But sometimes you have problems with your server and you don't want to expose this information to the user because it will be confusing. But I think the most common was like 200, 201, 404, 400, and 500. And you can always read from the Mozilla page I shared here. Well, I didn't also had a paper earlier. I just remember like, okay, 201 means okay, and so on. It's just because I used it so much in my career that I remember. And I expect you the same. So you yes. So one. Yes. I actually sent it last week.
Oh, yeah.
Then you didn't check the links I sent. Ah. Yes, but basically 1xx wait for your chat. So like it's 2xx, here's your chat, and 300 your chat over here, and 4xx you fucked up, 500 I fucked up, or we fucked up. That's yes. Yes. So to answer which problem we are talking about here. Yes. So there we go. Let's start with exercise 3. And please use Postman for that, because it will be the first time for you to use Postman. So just please feel free to ask questions about it. So this we are over time. So how far are you with exercise 3? How obvious are the things there? It's a bit, so yeah. Because we can still go over it one more time next week. But also try to spend some time at home going through this, also search on the internet using Google and so on. And then maybe try to come next time with some questions, even examples you don't understand, and then we can do it together and then understand. Because then you try a bit by yourself, and then you also have me here to help you if there's something you don't understand. Does make sense? And you also have some homework. There are some parts related to database and NodeJS or something like that. Next week, the whole focus will be about database. So that, I guess, if there's something specific you don't understand, also we will go through it next week. But I think by focusing this week about routing should be easy, I hope. The most common parts beside middleware and so on. But yes, any questions before we wrap up today? Yes, I think that's all. Where's Renee? No, because he's the one who's managing. I'm just recording here, but he's the one who can share it. So, but you can Slack him, of course. Yeah. Cool. But it's recording. You can see the mark over there. Yes. Cool. So then I'll see you next week.